Hi, everyone, and welcome to Keep It Personal. Getting people to pay attention, understand your message, and take action has never been harder. This show is about what's working, how personalization, creativity, and real human connection help you reach people and drive action. Keep It Personal is brought to you by Personal, the personalized video software for busy teams who need more than automation. We combine flexibility, security, and expert guidance to help you turn attention into action. I'm Josías de la Espada, your host, CEO here at Personal. Today, we are talking about something every B2B marketer feels right now. At least that's my opinion and based on what I see online as well. How do you make complex information clear, meaningful, and easy to understand, especially in industries where the work sits behind the scenes? And how do you scale all of that without losing the creativity, the empathy, or the personal connection? To explore this with me, I'm joined by someone who lives this balance every day. Brad, let me see if I get I do your last name correctly. Burgess, did I do
You
that right?
nailed it. Brad
Okay,
Burgess, you got
thank
it.
you, thank you. He's the vice president of marketing at IST Management Services. Brad has spent his entire career building a collaborative, high performing marketing organization, leading with empathy, championing creativity, and also helping shape IST's brand through storytelling that simplifies complexity and drives meaningful growth. He's also a photographer. Actually, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But he combines basically operational workflows into or makes them into or translates them into stories that are accessible, supporting his team's professional journey and creating work that feels both thoughtful and impactful. And the proof is in the people and in the numbers. You can go to LinkedIn and read more about that in there. And Brad, outside of marketing, I've heard and I've seen some of your work online that you are an avid landscape photographer who finds clarity, connection, and inspiration in the places your camera takes you. And that could be even under weather like I am today. So Brad, welcome to the Keep It Personal podcast and video show. I'm really glad to have you here. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. And thank you for having me here. It is definitely not rainy in Atlanta, Georgia. We've got a beautiful sunny day and it's nice and warm too. So would be a great day to go out and take pictures, but unfortunately I'm working. So
All right, so rainy days are for me to stay at home.
yep.
So I have the chimney here. It's off. Thinking about changing my mind about it. But Brad, you describe yourself as an empathetic, sorry, creative who thrives on collaboration. I
Yep.
have a question for you. So, what does being a creative mean, like to you inside an organization where this, like the work is, in my view, at least operational, detailed, and often complex?
Well, one, and I think it's important that people really understand what the word creative means. A lot of people associate that directly to art. And
Hmm.
while art is a form of creativity, it is not the only way to be creative. Creative is simply the process of taking nothing and making something and working through that steps of where you have an idea, you get collaborative, you talk about it, you understand it, you see what works, you see what fails, and you keep shifting and building it until you have that final product that you put out into the world.
Hmm.
So operations is actually an incredibly creative endeavor. Building the data and the workflows behind the art is very creative because you have to you have this workflow and you're like, this client is going to engage with this piece of creative here. How are they
Yeah.
going to engage with it? Now you're trying to decide, how are they going to engage with it? They're going to either do it this way, or this way. If they do it in each step, what's the next step in the process? How do we want to keep telling them this story? How do we keep wanting to nurture them through that top of the funnel to learn about in our case, IST, to learn about our professional services, to learn how we're going to support them. So that's just as creative as the really cool ad or the really cool design or the words that my content writers and communications team are creating. They're both creative. And the key is figuring out what type of creative people are, where they excel, and then trying to get as many of those voices into one room. Because when I can get the graphic designer, the communications person, and that marketing ops person all in one room, all talking about this, then we have the opportunity to create a campaign that can actually have impact versus you can have the prettiest design ever, but if you don't have the knowledge behind how you think your people are going to engage with it, then it's going to fail. But if you have an ugly campaign that they just in the doom scroll just blow past, it's going to fail too. So it's trying to tap into everyone's creativity. And one of the things I'll talk about on LinkedIn all the time is anyone can be creative. I truly believe that. I stole that from Pixar and Remy with anybody can cook, but I truly believe anyone can be creative. It's just understanding what your creative is, because you can make a super incredible spreadsheet that has impact that was a blank sheet when you started, and that's just as creative as making just that killer graphic design for the campaign.
I love that. So it's refreshing to hear creativity defined that way. Actually, I spent my like the beginning of my career a few years ago in the advertising and commercial creativity work, let's say, in a studio, and I learned like a lot. I think the first agency I worked at, I think I spent there like 5 years or so, and I learned a lot because it was a small studio, and we had like a lot of work, and it was a mind shift, let's say, to train my brain to be creative, because you had to be delivering just because of the deadlines and all that for clients. And I learned back then that everyone could be creative. I am naturally quote unquote creative, but I learned processes and I learned to see things in a different way so that I could quote unquote force myself to find solutions through creativity, like to communicate in that context. So I think it shows what you are referring to, shows how creativity in the end is not just design or a video. In the end, it has to do with or it is like a mindset, and it's how we in the end help people understand things just in different ways, regardless of the format, regardless of the context, etc. So
yeah, and I love what you said there real quick about process, because a lot of people will be like, oh, process kills creativity. I disagree with that completely. Process gets your brain to not have to worry about every step. So if you create a great process, you create good things, and you put that in place and you lock that, then it frees you from having to worry about every step down the path, and lets the areas where you need that more of that human interaction, you need more of that human focus to be able to focus and be creative. So if you don't have to worry about everything, you only have to worry about 10 to 20%, you can be a lot more creative in that 10 to 20% if you build that process. And I think a lot of times people get scared. They're like, oh, well, if it's so processed, I'm going to shut my creatives out. And I think you actually free them up when you remove ambiguity from it. When you say, when you give some direction and you're like, you don't need to worry about that. We've got that. It's going to work. This is happening. Focus here. Focus on finding the solution here, because this is where we're going to connect with that client. This is where we need to be personal. This is where we need to be creative.
Okay, so with that, IST services. So I think e-discovery? Could that be
Yeah,
records
so we
management?
have two major business lines. One
Mhm,
is workplace experience and facilities outsourcing. We literally go into other people's corporate offices, major law firms. We provide the people and the technology to manage all of those types of solutions that impact an employee's experience in that office. That goes from mail and package delivery, print and imaging services, hospitality
mm,
services like managing break rooms and conference rooms and the reception and the visitor management. We provide all those little soft touch services
mhm,
that the employee's not thinking about, but really impacts them and makes their life better. And then the
mhm,
other is the litigation support services, where we work with major law firms and corporations to manage every part of a litigation that can be outsourced. So that main one that you talked about is e-discovery, which is just the collection of data,
mhm,
processing it, and giving it in a way that lawyers can easily manage it. And then we do several other pieces down that path. But yeah, those are the two services that we're providing. I know they don't sound like they marry together. They oddly do, because we worked so much in law firms that we learned so much about this litigation support, and we were doing parts of it naturally in that print copy imaging world. And then
mhm,
it just easily shifted, because we were already a technology company also, to be
mm.
able to do more of the technology side of it.
So with that, how do you turn complex behind the scenes work into stories that somehow feel clear, simple, and meaningful for your clients?
So that starts with doing your best to understand your clients. So one, it's going to be that ICP and defining those and understanding them. And these are the people that we really want to go after. And then diving deeper,
Mhm,
and then understanding your buyers. And when you do that, it allows you to create empathy. It
mm,
allows you to say, okay, this is where their pain is. This is
mhm,
where their struggle is. This is where their risk is. And
mhm,
once you understand those on a real level, then you can create personalized marketing campaigns and content and design and videos, whatever it is that speaks to them. Because
mm,
you're not saying, hey, look at my shiny product, here's all our features, don't you love it? You're saying, man, I know what you're going through. I understand that your employees don't want to come back to the office, and we've got to create an environment that welcomes them, that makes their life easier, that makes it, when they're in the office, they're able to perform at a higher level than remote.
mm,
Or you're struggling with all this data and you don't know where to start. We know where to start. We get it. So you're creating that message, and then instantly that person, they connect with it and they say, "Oh, they do understand me. They
mm,
are speaking to me, and I could see this solution helping me." And you're speaking to the benefit, not the feature, and they're
mm,
going, "Got it. Yeah, this works for me." So that's how you can personalize those complex ideas into simple ideas. You don't need to tell them. Nobody actually cares how the sausage is made. They don't
mhm,
need to know all that behind the background. They need to know what's in it for them, and how you're
mm,
gonna make their life easier. If they
mm,
have to make a decision to bring to replace you with someone else, you gotta take that risk off the table.
mm,
We're dealing in some serious, multi-million dollar contracts that
mm.
choosing to go with us is career defining, particularly if it goes poorly. So we got to figure out how we're removing that risk. And so you do that by understanding what their pain is. And when you do that,
Mm,
it naturally takes complex and makes it
mm.
simple, because it's, right what's in their heart.
Okay, so when the work is complex, context clarity becomes, I guess, a competitive advantage. Um,
Yeah,
because in the end, you mentioned like multi-million uh, contracts.
right.
Um, so how long are those, like the decision making process for an average client? Does it change, or is there like an average? And are you fighting against other brands for the same deals, let's say? Or what happens there, taking into account that it is like a complex a complex topic in general.
Right. So in that workplace and facilities world, they're long contracts, they're 3-5 year contracts. The sales cycle could be that whole 5 years as you're, they're just into that contract with this person, and you're working that whole entire time. But those sales cycles are very long. Velocity is very slow. Creating a connection is important because it's such a long process. And we're absolutely going up against other brands. We're going up against brands with much better brand knowledge than us. We're a large company, but we're not a Fortune 500 company. We're not in the billions, but we are going up against those billion-dollar companies. So it's creating storytelling and messaging that really lets them understand how we're unique, how we're different, and how we're going to be able to support them. In the e-discovery world, much faster sales cycles. Sometimes they could be as long as 90 days or as short as 2. Depending on the pain that this person's in litigation and where they're going. So it's different storytelling, but it's still just as important because we go up in workplace and facilities against basically the same 8 to 10 companies. And in e-discovery, there's another 1,000 out there. So it's a lot harder to separate yourself from the pack, but it's figuring out how to do that and how to create those storytelling that lets you get there. And I mean, it's all about personalization, and then of course understanding what personalization means.
Do you think your background in photography also helps you in that creative and storytelling marketing process?
Yeah. 1,000%. And it does it in a couple different ways. Number one, when I really started getting into landscape photography and turned it into a side hustle and everything about 12 years ago, I'd been with the company for a long time. I was started as their only marketer. I did everything. As we continued to grow and shift, and I continued to add staff, and I started hiring people so much more talented than me in their different areas, and I had to manage them. I felt like I had gotten so much into the management, I'd gotten away from the creative, that I was having a hard time connecting. And I was having a hard time remembering their pains and their struggles in that process. And just doing it on a personal level for myself let me reconnect with that and go, this is how I want to communicate this person, because this is how I want somebody looking at this work helping me communicate. So it just allowed me in a better way to connect that way. And then it just helps me keep my creative brain open, particularly in that management leadership position where sometimes it comes more about the science, which is not my strong suit. It comes more about the data. It's more about creating the reports to take to the board, to give to the people that need to see the ROI and all of that. And that can sap, for me personally, because I don't like it, can really sap my creativeness. And when I lose that, I have a harder time being strong managing over there. So it just gives me that outlet to go, you're still creative. You still got this. You can still reach back and talk to people. And then it's just great for mental health.
That makes sense. So I completely relate to that idea of, it's like slowing down, right? And learning to pay attention, to like emotionally connect with ourselves, let's say.
Exactly.
So, except when it's raining, like now, I can hear the rain there. And for example, I love trekking, and I think, I mean, based on what we spoke also about, you also do. And in marketing, we more often than not are like always in a rush. And, but the magic is usually in like those details. We many times miss those, or skipped them, or leave them behind. And so I see that like often actually in campaigns some of our clients do with our software. That seems to be more about just the data instead of versus what it should be, which is how we can use the data to emotionally connect with the person on the other side of the
Right.
screen. How can we use it to explain something in a way that makes sense through their eyes? And I think a lot of that has to do with slowing down whenever it's possible. More often than not, it is possible, and not just rushing to show the data, but okay, how can this piece of information, or how can we help Mark or Laura or whoever understand this in a way that makes sense to them? And a lot of time that's always that's a creative process, like slowing down basically. So automation can make your your work, for example, in your company efficient. And I guess so. I don't know if you are like in the hundreds or thousands of clients. I guess it depends on the product. But how do
Right.
you guys use automation to somehow be more efficient, but taking into account that empathy we're also talking about?
Yeah. So we're doing it in a couple different ways. I think automation really helps us in getting those data points in on what we're putting out there, seeing how it connects and where people are connecting, and it flows into that very standard marketing workflow where marketing is trying to create I really hate marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads. At the end of the day, we're all about revenue. Everyone should just be on the revenue team, and all our goal is to do revenue. And do we really care where the revenue came from and who started it? No, all we care is that we got it. But I understand, have to
Mm-hmm.
know where it came from. So automation helps us see, are things we putting out there, are they connecting? Are they hitting? Are people working through these workflows the way we thought they were going to, or where's that disconnect? So it helps us understand where they're connecting. What's
Mm-hmm.
difficult about automation and data is, and it's what you were talking about, there's two ways of looking at it. There's just the raw, this email had 42% open, 5% clicks, and we got one appointment after it. And that's all real data, and that's valuable, and that's what the board wants to see, and that's how they want to give you budget and all that, and I get it. But it doesn't tell the story about how Mark engaged with this and how Laura engaged with it. And it's trying to, like you said, take that pause, take that time, look deeper into it, and see if you can really figure out, well, why did Mark engage with it this way, and why did Laura engage with it that way? And okay, Mark's at a firm that's handling construction data, and Laura's at a firm that's handling IP. So Laura didn't engage with the way we thought she was going to, because this didn't fit IP problems. This fit construction problems, because this AI tool we're doing here really works for construction, but it doesn't work as well for our IP. So we need to make sure we're not spending our advertising dollars. If, say, we're doing this on LinkedIn and we're trying to target, we need to say, oh, well, we need to make another segment. We need to make a segment for construction and a segment for IP, so that we're actually talking to Laura here, and we're actually talking to Mark. And when you keep doing that, and you keep looking at that data, and you keep making smaller and smaller and smaller segments, makes your life harder, but the automation allows you to get there, and it does allow you to, hopefully, once you do the heavy lifting in the background, to be able to work through it better moving forward. It allows you to create more personalized data. Like I said, it depends on what people's definition of personalized is. If it's, you're looking for me to send out an email that says, hey, Laura, you went to the University of Georgia and so did I can't personalize to that level. That's what a sales rep's for. And that's why they do outreach, and they can dive deep in that LinkedIn and they can get that. I can't get that personalized, but I can try and figure out what Laura's problems are, and does she have similar problems as other people we're targeting? And if I can do that, and automation can help there, then we can make better campaigns that reach better.
So automation should make the message clearer, not colder. And I
Correct.
think many teams forget that. So in our case, for instance, with so something similar happens with personalized videos. So many leaders in the end focus on scaling the process. It's easy to create 1,000 videos, 100 videos, 100,000 videos, a million videos. So that's easy. The technology is there, the platforms are there, and all that. But it is not that easy to scale empathy in an automated way. And there you mentioned the human factor, the, like for example, the reps, also the data that is being gathered. But you also mentioned context,
Yep.
understanding what this information means, and then based on that, basically using that information to better connect, to better engage with them, depending on their particular situation, their particular context. I think
Yep.
you articulated that beautifully. So has there been a moment like where automation somehow actually made your work more um, like, so have you seen, so I don't know how long have you guys been using automation in, maybe from a CRM perspective, maybe
Right.
from any type of marketing communication perspective, but well, do you, I got that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you see a clear difference, like now automation in 2025 versus just 2-3 years ago? Do you see any difference? Also taking into account that more and more and more organizations are also using automation to just to scale messaging, but maybe not to scale or that empathy. So I would like to know your
Yeah.
vision, or what differences do you see out there?
It's never been more difficult to be in marketing than it is now. And part of that goes into as we've moved into this AI world, the idea and the reality of what one can automate, and the idea and the reality of how one can create personalized messaging are never been farther apart, because I mean, we simply just, everybody's throwing a million different things at us. You don't know which one to pick. You don't know which one to test. You don't know which one to try, and you get down rabbit holes, and it's so much more difficult to just get down to, I want to walk this person here to here to here to here. And you're being told, I've got to make this super personalized and everything. And it's gotten really difficult. So the answer is, it's far more difficult now than it was 3 years ago, because there's so many more options. So that's where we're struggling, is it used to be a little bit more linear, and now it feels like it's kind of all over the place. And we're trying to figure out how to consolidate what our tech stack should really be, and try and get people to know how to do it, which is hard, because they're like coming to me and say, what should I do here? And I'm like, I learned AI the exact same moment you did. So I don't know. I'm asking you to figure it out, but trying to figure out how to work with the team and work to do that. So, but that doesn't mean automation is dead and isn't helping personalization. It absolutely is. And the CRM is helping at that. I think for automation to work well in a personalized one to a few, it's about segments. It's about understanding your clients and segmenting it as much as humanly possible, trying to figure out where they are, and then set up those automations, whether that's an email workflow, a targeted ads, retargeted ads, getting to the right conferences and the right people, however whatever that is. And we're building automation workflows for all of that, and scoring and all those different things. It's just, the smaller the segment you can make, which automation helps greatly with, and AI helps greatly with, because I can take this list of 1,000 clients and say, hey, AI, find me the similarities. Find me what looks the same, whether that's firm size, employee count, technologies that they're using, types of cases, suits, whatever. If you can help me break that up, if you can automate this process, so every time I get a new list, and I can run it through here, and you can help me get them into the right groups, then I'm going to be able to speak to that person on a more personal level versus where we used to have to do it by hand and it was impossible.
And that's a creative process too. So
Yeah.
how do you help your team like to also have that creative mindset, so that it's not like boxed in, because what you did there, that's a creative process. You are, we have this scenario, then we can actually do this, we can use this to actually do this other thing, etc. That's a mindset. And I'm wondering, how do you help them have a similar mindset if needed, which I believe it adds a lot of value.
So one of the first keys is understanding your team and understanding that if you expect one person to write the copy, create the design, and create the segment, you're probably not going to be successful, because that person that's really great at taking that spreadsheet and creating the automated process to build the segments and to understand what all those different segments are is not the graphic designer. It's probably not the content writer. That content writer is probably not the person you want making the graphic design, even though they need to be guiding the thing. But there's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of small companies. There's a lot of bootstrapping, and you got three people, and you got to have a generalist that can do it all. But if you can figure out what people do well, and then the key is put them together. Don't say you make this spreadsheet without talking to those people. You make this content without talking to those people. You do this design without talking to those people. Put them together, because the design person's going to have ideas that's going to impact that person making the automation to create your different segments, because they're going to be like, oh, well, I know when I design stuff like this, it gets better engagement. It gets more clicks. People really like this type of design, and they can go, oh, well, yeah, okay, that's good. Can we see how that hits into this segment? Oh, you're right. That is working really well for 3 of the segments. So that's why we're seeing the spark and engagement. It's not working for these 2 segments. We're actually seeing it reduce. So let's create 2 designs. Let's create that one there. You got to get them talking, because the more voices you get in a room, I mean, you can have too many voices, but the more smart, intelligent voices you get in a room of people that are open-minded, that believe in the other people and know that the end goal is to get the best product to drive revenue, you're going to create better stuff, and you're going to get it different ways. So it's really, it's about creating that open, collaborative environment. And if you're a person that it's got to be your idea or nothing, you're never going to be truly successful, because you got to listen to other voices. And as a leader, it's your job. At the end of the day, you have to make the final decision, but you've got to be able to listen to all those ideas and not come in with a belief that this is what we're going to do. Because if you do, you're just going to keep doing the same thing. But if you get those different voices, you listen, you're going to get a more personalized product. You're going to get better creative, and everybody's going to up their game.
So it's like treating constraints more like as direction instead of a limitation. And yeah, okay, that makes total sense.
And you're going to have constraints. You have things that are, and as a leader, sometimes it's like, look, I know we want to be outside of a box, but we can't. This is our budget. This is our voice, and we have to stay in budget, and we can't speak in a different voice or a different tone. So we've got to figure out how to work within those 2 constraints. But everything in between those is open. Let's figure it out.
So you've used CRM and automation to improve lead generation, for instance, and retention, based on what I saw on, I believe, in LinkedIn. How do you turn that data into dialogue? Going back to what you were talking about earlier, instead of just dashboard or reports, is that like how is that something that involves many people, many individuals within your team, or that's like one brain that is connecting that information into stories, for instance, or how do you manage that?
I have a lot of artists, so data is a struggle for us. But as we talked about earlier, I have to create data to show return on investment
Mm-hmm.
to get board approval and budget. And that data is pretty straight and it's pretty set in line. And we have, here's what our goal is. Did we hit it? Did we go above it and move forward? And while that data drives discussion, it doesn't drive what you're talking about, which is story and narrative. And when we're trying to change our story or our narrative off of data, it gets into A/B testing, it gets into experimentation, and that's where you get the team in and you go, all right, we've been hitting this baseline, good, bad, ugly, whatever, doesn't matter. We want to always be changing and shifting because you can't rest. And so how are we going to experiment? And then how are we going to track it? And that's where you get into, all right, let's do a campaign that this is our message and this is our message. They're two very different pain points. So we want to see which pain point seems to be resonating more. And we throw it out there and we run it for, this is where it gets hard when you talk to the board, because they're like, run it for 5 days and make a decision, and that's not enough time. But we run it for 60 days and we see, okay, this one's working better than this one. Why? Okay. And we start thinking about that, and then we'll push that one out, but then we'll do another test on that one. You know, it's not just, oh, we're going to run with A because it won now for the next year. We're going to run with A, but we're going to still create another B and see, did that B that's slightly different? And we just keep tweaking and seeing what those changes are. But you have to be careful. Everyone wants to change quickly. There's a real need for speed. But if you change too fast, you're changing before your client ever sees it or hears it, and you're already onto a new message and they didn't actually ever hear the old one. So it's trying to get people to understand that you need time and space. Brand is not fast. Brand is not where quick wins are. Building brand does not give you instant revenue. You account-based marketing, getting a sales rep to say, I'm selling into this company and I'm going to do whatever, will get a quick win, but that's not going to build you brand. Brand, unfortunately, is slow, but it needs to be methodical, and you need to be listening to that data behind so you can keep tweaking, but just not tweaking so fast that the buyer never understands what's there, because you're on version 8 and they're still trying to read version 1.
That's true. That's a huge reminder. So with that, back to personalization, what do you think like separates personalization that feels from personalization that somehow feels forced or even creepy? Taking that, you have a creative mind, or you see creativity in a different way than most people do, but at the same time you work in an industry that is methodical, is organized, and both things are they're not fighting against each other. Both things can work together. And perhaps I would love to know your thoughts on that. So personalization that feels thoughtful versus creepy or forced, perhaps not useful.
Well, one, you got to define, am I speaking to or am I speaking at you? And speaking at you feels forced. And yes, we might be personalizing to the company, but I'm speaking, saying, look at me. I have this product. It's really great. It's going to it does these things. to, hey, you have this problem. I get it. Here's a solution. I want to be your partner to help. So you always want to speak to them, not at them. And then when you get in and when you speak to them, you're now personalizing to them. But once again, that's a one to many, one to a few type approach. You can do personalization that's one to few, but still one to one in that sense, where you can grab some tokens and you can throw some things in and be like, hey, Mr. Home Depot, blah, blah, blah. And I think that has impact. I don't think it has the impact it had 5-10 years ago when tokens were more new and everything. Now everyone expects Brad to be in the subject line, company to be here. And you still have to do that. And you still need to make sure, like if it's an email campaign and your messaging is one of the few, you're still doing the personalization down to the name, the company, the title, maybe a case or whatever, so that it still feels personal and that feels connected. And it also makes the buyer know, look, they're taking the time to make sure this is directed to me. And one of the things we do with our litigation stuff is we're able to understand that lawyer X is working on this case. So we'll throw in literally the case caption, Home Depot versus Brad Burgess in there. And so they're like, oh, that is my case. And they feel seen. And I don't think that feels creepy. It's the sales rep that can get super personal, and the sales rep that probably needs to get a little creepy sometimes, but can with some people feel creepy. And that's when they deep dive so deep into your LinkedIn that they're pulling out weird facts or whatever. And you're like, I've never talked to you and you're asking me how my kid's preschool play went. That one feels weird. And so it's teaching those sales reps, because social selling is massive and sales reps absolutely need to be hyper personal. There's too much information out there not to be hyper personal, but it's teaching them what goes maybe a little too far. Hey, I see you drive a Ford Bronco like I do. I love that. I love Ford. We've got a connection towards, we've gone too deep. So it's working with that, because sales reps can be far more personalized than marketing ever can. And that's the power of sales. And that's one of the many reasons you have to have sales. Marketing and sales love to fight, and I'm no different. But I understand the value of what they can do, and they can connect on a one-to-one level in a way I never can as marketing, because I'm still a shotgun where they're a precision rifle.
So looking ahead, what excites you most about where marketing is going, especially in, I would say, service-driven B2B industries with a lot of noise right now? More teams have access to more and even cheaper tools, I would say, and budget for, like in many areas, is not a limitation anymore, as maybe it was 10 years ago or so. So where do you see things like going right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you sat in any of my meetings, you would know I love AI. I love what it's bringing to the table. I love the impact it can have. What's important is utilizing it smartly, utilizing it correctly. AI, one of the first things we did in the world of AI is we really redefined our ICPs. We really redefined our buyer persona. We created, we have this type of marketing piece. We created super detailed prompts that help us build that in future ways. And we just load them in. We're putting together this type of presentation for this client. Let's put in our ICP. Okay, and this ICP, we want to do it to, let's say, the lawyer versus the legal ops person. So we put in the lawyer buyer persona. Here's the framework for how we want you to build the data or build that thing. But then I ask my communications people, my content writers, I'm like, you've got all that in there, but I still need you to write. I still need you to write that initial piece. Now, what's really great is now AI is your editor. It's not, and you're because they can get our voice better than AI, even though the voice guide helps make sure it's in line and tightens it up. But they write, but they don't worry about grammar. They don't worry about spelling. They're not overly focused on flow. They're just focused on getting real, true, human connective stories out there. And then they load that in, and they load it in with all our other pieces. We get a really great piece of content. Now, you still got to interact back and forth. You got to tweak and work and get it down. And then once you have that one piece where AI is really great is on the volume piece, where you're like, okay, I got this incredible white paper. Give me 10 social LinkedIn posts, and it spits them out. And you're like, 7 of these 10 are great. These other 3 I throw away or I tweak. Give me this, give me that. It allows you to create great volume quickly once you've created that one strong piece. It also allows us to have better voice consistency, because writers, no matter how much you try, everyone writes in a different voice. Everyone has slightly different word preference, but all these different guides we built helps to get it so everything has that same unique voice. But anyone that just does a single prompt, you're not going to be successful. And what you're putting out there is not going to be great. And people will be like, oh my God, I don't understand why, Brad, you get this from AI and I get this. And I was like, well, yeah, because I still spent 90 minutes. It was probably 400 prompts. We were literally engaged in a back and forth conversation, working, tweaking, and I actually write. And you said, give me a compelling story for 500-word blog post on AI and construction cases. You're not, it'll put something together, but it's not going to be what you want. You still have to engage in it. It's training and teaching people how to engage with it. But we're just, the volume that we're able to produce and the increased quality, because we don't rely on AI to be our content creator. We rely on it to be our editor.
That's like kind of back to process.
Right.
And finally, when you hear the phrase "keep it personal," what does that mean to you as a marketer, creative, and as a leader?
Yeah. It means at the end of the day, we're humans selling to humans and working with humans. And we have forgotten that so often. And it's in marketing and sales and B2B has come about, look at my flashy feature, look at this AI tool, look at that. And I don't care. There's so many out there and everyone's saying the same thing. So you got to be human. You got to understand I'm a human and I'm talking to humans, and figure out how to resonate with that. And that's what personal is. That's what keeping it personal is. It's understanding that. And you got to make sure that the people you're working with, that you're not holding them to their value is the data. If you hold the people you work with to their value is the open rate on an email, that's not personal. You gotta understand, all right, employee, why do you think this email did this? Why do you think it didn't? Really talk to them, get to know them, and learn what their strengths and their personality is, so that you can go, all right, we're going to keep it personal, and this is where you thrive. And when you figure that out and you let them go, you're going to see that data go up, not down. But if you hold them to just that data point, they're going to go somewhere else, and you just start back over. It's all about remembering personal is human. And when we as people and as organizations remember that, we're going to be far more successful, even if it's maybe a little slower and a little bit more organic of growth, but it's going to ultimately get us where we want to go.
Yeah. And that's also a way to build brands, actually.
Right.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful way to close this conversation. So thank you very much, Brad. So this was fantastic. And thank you for your time, your insights, and for your openness as well. So for everyone listening or watching, I hope this helped you think differently about how creativity, how clarity, empathy can scale, even in complex B2B industries. And I didn't ask Brad about it, but I saw maybe 2 3 weeks ago or so a post. I think it was a company post, but also maybe a repost from you about one of your team members, I believe,
Yeah.
that had been there for 10 years. And I thought, oh wow, that's rare nowadays. So there is something good happening there. So keep it up. I'm
Excellent.
Josías, and this is Keep It Personal. I'll see you in the next episode, and have a great day. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.